property market in South Africa. In the past, I always thought that if there's conflict in the Middle East, if there's a war between Israel and Gaza and the Palestine, how does it affect us here in South Africa? So the talk today is that what factors influence us in South Africa and with regards to the sales of property. So just as a little brief overview, a little bit of a background. If we have a look, in South Africa, the residential property market is 6.6 trillion rand. That's the property market in South Africa. That figure is made up of about 7 million homes, of which 80% of these homes are freehold, 12% are sectional title, and 7% of those homes form part of homeowners associations. So obviously there are also other properties such as commercial properties, agricultural land, etc. But we have a look and we concentrate on the freehold and sectional title properties in South Africa because that's our market, that's what we deal with. The most value in residential property is made up of a smaller number of homes. For example, 18% of residential homes are worth more than 1.5 million rand. So only 18% is worth more than 1.5 million rand. But that 18% makes up 54% of the total market value. So the point is, you can see that the lower value the property is, if it is under 1.5 million rand, there's more value in that property because that is a bigger market. You're going to work with a very small market if you work with 1.5 million rand properties and up. It's only 18%, but it's a hell of a lot of value, 50% of the value in that 6.6 trillion rand. So they also had a look at statistics about first-time home buyers. And in South Africa, it's quite interesting. In South Africa, there's mainly young, between 20 and 34 people, years of age. That is the age where people, buyers in South Africa, enter the market for the first time, age between 20 and 34. First-time home buyers, which is considerably less than the global trend. Internationally, less young people are entering or buying properties. If you have a look further at the factors that influence, factors that influence the property market in South Africa. So these are the things that we're just quickly going to have a look at. We're going to have a look at interest rates, unemployment, inflation, the rising cost of utilities, load shedding, the lack of growth in the property prices, demographic factors, segregation, location, safety and security, as well as foreign investors in South African property market. If we have a look at interest rates are very important because that will determine the buying power of, let's say, for example, a first-time home buyer. The interest rate will determine, can he afford this bond? Because as we know, only 30% of your gross income can be used towards paying for your bond. So the lower the interest rates, the more affordable the properties would be. So our property market and our industry that we operate in is highly dependent on lower interest rates. So the interest rates are a linchpin of global economic stability, and their fluctuation can significantly impact the real estate environment and real estate investments. South African Reserve Bank will determine the repo rate, which is currently at 8.25%. It has come down, so it's now at 8%. And we're going to have a look, why did the interest rate come down? What factors played a role in bringing the interest rate down? And what factors must we keep our eye on to have a look to see whether the interest rate will still come down, which will be a positive thing for the South African property market and your businesses for selling properties. So the interest rate has come down to 8%. The interest rate for lending rate is 11.5%. And the interest rate, as I said, impacts affordability and for people to qualify for home loans. The higher the borrowing costs will deter some potential buyers from entering the property market, and it will prompt other um, purchases to rather delay the purchase of properties, or people will decide to just hang on to the properties that they've got, not to sell and to upgrade or upscale, rather just keep what they've got. They can't afford to upgrade their properties. So it's a potential for bargain hunters. So you'll see that when the interest rates are high and um, there are a lot of bargain hunters out there that will make ridiculous offers on properties purely because they know that there's not a lot of activity in the property market. And properties are on the market for a longer period of time. So you might find more desperate sellers that will be enticed to, to accept lower offers for their properties. So that is where bargain hunters will come to the fore. If you have a look at unemployment, unemployment in South Africa is very, very high. Currently, the unemployment rate, well, this talk was done in January, December last year, January this year. So the unemployment rate was at 31.9%. The unemployment rate currently is at almost 35%. So the unemployment is growing in the South African market, which is not great because there are less people that can enter the property market, that can afford mortgage bonds, etc. So that is one of the factors that we will keep our eyes on as to how's it going with the unemployment in South Africa. Because if the unemployment is up, then we're not going to get those qualifying first-time home buyers that we need to join the property market and to invest in property in South Africa. And that is going to affect our businesses at the end of the day. There are also various factors that contribute to this statistic of high unemployment. It is the high labor supply. So there are a lot of people out there in the industry that are looking for jobs. There's a big supply and there's a low demand for labor right now. So there are low levels of entrepreneurship. So there are lower levels of people starting their own businesses. Sustained economic disruptions from poor government policies and a high quality of low-skilled workers. So there are a lot of youngsters out there that don't go to university or college. They don't have the necessary skills. There's a massive amount of unskilled youngsters in the market looking for jobs. So there's a big supply of labor, but there's a very low demand for labor out there. So that is why the unemployment is so high. A big factor that plays a massive role on the interest rates that is a driving force of the property market in South Africa is inflation. It's probably one of the first factors that I would have a look at if I want to see what the property market is going to do in a couple of months' time. You know, the first thing that I would have a look at is inflation. Inflation is the measure of how much things cost, how much do goods and services cost, what is the price of food, what is the price of electricity, what is the and the higher the cost of those things, the higher the interest rate will be that is set by the South African Reserve Bank. Purely because if the prices of goods are increasing, the prices of fuel, the prices of services, the price of medical services, medicine, bread, milk, the higher the prices of those things are, the more the Reserve Bank is governed to increase the interest rates, to make people spend less money, spend less credit, so that they don't become more indebted in their daily lives. So that is why interest rates increase as soon as the inflation rate increases. So if we have a look, the inflation measured at about 5.3% in March of this year. Do you want to know a statistic? October last year, inflation was at 5.9%. This year, this time last year, October last year, it was at 5.9%. In March this year, it was down to 5.3%. The inflation rate as at October 2024 is at 4.4%. So you can see how inflation has drastically reduced in the last year, and that is why we could get a little reprieve on our interest rates. The 25 basis points, 0.25% reduction in interest rates took place because inflation is down and it is on a downward trajectory. The outlook for this year and for the beginning, the first 2 quarters of next year, is that the interest rate will further go down with 0.75%. Yes, it will go down in increments, but by February, March, April next year, it should be down by a further 0.75%, which means that the interest rate would have gone down with at least 1% in 8 months or etc. But that has got a very, very positive influence or effect on us, on our daily business, because as soon as the interest rates go down, there are more people that will qualify for their mortgage bonds out there. So it's a positive thing for the interest rates to go down. Inflation is great. It's on its way down, which is fantastic. That's very positive. And that is why inflation is one of the first factors that you would want to have a look at when you want to predict what is going to happen in the property market. Are the sales going to increase? Are they going to decrease? What the hell is going to happen? Inflation is the big one because that affects the interest rate that the Reserve Bank places on overdraft lending rates. So the inflation erodes the purchase power. Yes, that's what inflation does. The higher the inflation is, the more things cost, and the less you can afford to pay towards a mortgage bond. Increased costs will affect the amount that the buyers have available for the repayment of their mortgage bonds. And yes, because the inflation rate is going down, because the cost of goods and services out there are reducing, the Reserve Bank can reduce the interest rates as well for what we need to pay on our mortgage bond, which is fantastic. Very, very positive. If we have a look, the rising cost of utilities. And another thing with regards to inflation is that the dollar, the South African rand, is a lot stronger compared to the dollar. The rand has strengthened dramatically in the last couple of months. And I had a look to see, but why? Why all of a sudden did the rand strengthen dramatically against the dollar? And they say because of the new political situation in South Africa, where we've got a government of national unity, of different political parties being involved. There's a lot more positivity out there. There's a lot more people that is now keen to invest in South Africa. So there's a lot more investment coming into South Africa. So that is why the rand is strengthening against the dollar. And because the rand is strengthening against the dollar, we are getting better prices for the fuel that we need to pay, that our farmers need to pay for diesel, that will reduce the food prices, etc., that will reduce inflation, that will reduce the interest rate that we pay on our mortgage bonds. So those factors play a big part in all those things. If you have a look at the rising cost of utilities and load shedding, obviously that is a very, very negative factor. While the rates vary per province, the increase on average approximately 20% in 2023. Electricity increased by 18.65% in 2023. And as you know, they want to increase electricity by 36% in 2025. So you can see that, oh, but hang on, inflation is fantastic. Interest rates are going down. The rand is very strong against the dollar. But now, if they do increase the electricity to 36% in 2025, that's going to infect inflation again. So if the inflation goes up again, that will negatively affect the interest rates that the banks will charge, which will again affect our prospective purchases out there. So that is why we need to keep our eye on the increase of 36% for electricity that they are asking for in 2025. The ongoing electricity crisis has also placed a major burden on property owners, as alternatives must be employed and paid for during the prolonged periods of load shedding. So when we did have major load shedding, a lot of people, homeowners, invested money in solar paneling, batteries, inverters, all those things. So a lot of their disposable income went towards those things to be able to have lights on at night or during the day, whatever. So they used their disposable funds to finance other sectors of their home as opposed to selling the house and using that money to invest as a deposits or on new properties to be purchased, etc. So that had an effect on the property market for us. If we have a look, so hopefully the increase will not be 36% for electricity because it will negatively affect the inflation, etc. Um, there's also a lack of growth in the property prices. According to the reports, prices in the housing market only grew by about 2.41% at the start of 2024. There's a high year-on-year growth is still well below the inflation. So that growth, the inflation is 4.4%. Well, at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year, it was at 5% or whatever. So you can see that inflation is still way higher than what the growth in the property market is. Looking at house prices per province, the highest growth is recorded in the Western Cape at 4.8%. So at least if we look at as at today, with inflation at 4.4%, the growth in the property market in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, and in Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces, that is pretty much there where inflation is, which is a great thing. But the lowest growth was recorded in Gauteng at 0.4%, which is drastically below the rate of inflation, which is not good for the Gauteng province, because that is why the property prices are stagnating. There's not a high demand for those properties. Properties are on the market for a longer period of time. There's also the demographic shift. So demographics determine the number of buyers, while the affluence provides an indicator of their ability to purchase a home. It's interesting to note that women own nearly 60% of all properties in South Africa, which is fantastic, either on their own or jointly with multiple other owners. The percentage of women only property purchases is also increasing. So women only buying in their own name, single women are purchasing property in their own name, which is increasing, despite the fact that women are 60% of homeowners already. Single women are also among the growing in the real estate market. First-time home buyers in 2023, there were almost 130,000 homes were sold to first-time home buyers who invested 93 billion, blah, 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 in the residential real estate market, according to Lightstone. So it's interesting to see that women own 60% and single women. There's an increase for first-time single women purchases as well. If we have a look at immigration, that's obviously people moving all over the show. So whether it is people moving from province to province, um, you know, that affects the property market in those specific provinces. So, immigration continues to make a large homes in remote areas a solid investment. Middle class homeowners are leaving the Gauteng province in increasing numbers, with Western Cape as their preferred destination. As such, the province has seen a surge in property transactions. According to reports, towns like Hermanus, Knysna, George have seen a marked increase in activity, including the sale of vacant plots, typically located in estates. Um, so, a lot of people are working from home. So, a lot of people, yes, might be moving from, let's use Gauteng province to the Western Cape, but they are also moving to smaller little towns like Hermanus, Knysna, George. Um, they find more value for money in those specific areas. They're also buying vacant plots to build properties, and they prefer to purchase in estates, secured estates. I don't know whether it is the mentality maybe of the Gauteng people with regards to safety and security. Look, it is not safe anywhere in the world, and especially in South Africa, but a lot of the people emigrating from Gauteng like to purchase properties in secure estates. I suspect it is because of the increased feel of security and comfort that that provides to you as a home buyer. If we have a look at location, safety, and security, again, that is why a lot of these people moving around from province to province purchase in secure estate is residential property in secure complexes and estates are particularly sought after. The rationale behind this being to escape a crime-ridden location and to enjoy the security amenities of residential estates. As such, properties in prime locations are priced higher. So properties in these secure estates are still sought after. They still get the highest prices, etc. For those reasons. Foreign investment and prospects of returns on investment. So a negative value for net foreign demand, defined as the difference between inbound demand, participation of foreign nationals and expats in the domestic market purchasing property, and outbound supply. So that's people immigrating, means that migration leads to an oversupply of homes available for sale, which puts downward pressure on the price. So if more people are going to Australia, England, New Zealand, America, wherever they want to go, the more people go out and the less people are moving in from overseas to South Africa, it puts pressure on the housing market because um, there's not a big demand then for those properties where people are leaving. So we try and keep the people in South Africa, and we encourage foreign investment. We want the foreigners to purchase property in South Africa. We don't want South Africans to necessarily leave, because the more South Africans leave and the less people, foreign investment, the, the less active the property market is in South Africa. With the Western Cape being a top choice for foreign investment, sorry, the province experienced higher rental and housing price inflation as per the national average. So yes, there are more people wanting to move here. So yes, in the Western Cape, we do have that as a positive. Geopolitical events, the real estate market is not insulated from global events. And that is why I spoke about the conflict in Israel. Those things affects us in South Africa. So if the United States places sanctions on Iran because the USA is of the opinion that Iran is sponsoring Hamas, Because of those sanctions, it increases the fuel price, because now Iran is a huge importer or exporter. We import from Iran fuel, and if there are sanctions on Iran to export their fuel to us, we've got to buy it from somewhere else, which means that we've got to pay more for fuel, and the fuel prices will go up. The Ukraine conflict also fueled heightened inflation, which likely exerted upward pressure on the local property capitalization rates. One repercussion of political and social instability is the decline in the frequency of real estate transactions. It is common for individuals to hesitate before purchasing any property during unrestful periods, resulting in a decrease in sales. So, as soon as there's a war, as soon as there's conflict, it puts pressure on us. People are scared to purchase property, to invest in property. If there are uncertainty, or if there are unrestful periods or areas in the world. If we have a look at other factors, energy solutions, the energy crisis in South Africa has steered by interest in homes that offer energy efficient and backup powered facilities. So, because of our load shedding, yes, load shedding has been reduced drastically. But if load shedding does come back, the homes with the solar panel, inverters, batteries, but even if load shedding doesn't come back, just considering the price of electricity, they're talking about 36% increase in 2025. So people are looking for properties that are green, that's got solar panels, that's got these. So those properties will still be in high demand. There's also a fourth industrial revolution. Technological savvy homes have generated interest from consumers looking to buy and rent property. This is in the form of smart homes, but also virtual reality homes, or homes that are found in the metaverse. So people are looking to go green. They're looking for smart homes. They're looking for homes that's got all the amenities that will make their life in the AI world that we live better. So, with the property landscape, there are niche market experience, unique trends. These trends indicate a market that is diverse and evolving, influenced by a mix of political, demographic, technological, and other factors. As such, it's important to stay in the loop regarding developments in the market to appeal to different client needs. So the whole reason for this talk was just to have a look to see what factors influence our lives. Is there a good forecast? I think absolutely. With the inflation rate being down and going down all the time, with the strengthening of the rand compared to the dollar, the interest rate is going to come down, and as they predict, another 0.75 basis points percent, which will be fantastic for the property industry. There will be so many more purchasers, that not only first-time home buyers, but people that are prepared to sell their property and upscale and buy more expensive property, etc. So inflation, interest rate are two of the most important factors that we look at when we have to see what will the outcome be for us. And that is it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Leapfrog. Thank you, Michelle. And before I cough again, enjoy the rest of your talk and enjoy the rest of the month.